All evidences of a civilized state are missing now in the Philippines, as hundreds of thousands of people are searching for food, water, and medical help. It was one of the biggest ocean storms ever recorded in that or any other country.
Massive relief efforts have started, but the damage is so great it's hard to reach many of the survivors. Heather Sells has the story.
It's still not clear just how many have died after a once-in-a-lifetime typhoon hit the Philippines on Friday.
Truckloads of dead bodies, like hundreds.
What is clear, the storm has displaced more than 500,000 people. They're living in rubble and desperate for food and water.
We're so very hungry and thirsty. That's why we're here.
Military planes have begun evacuating survivors from hard-hit Tacloban to Manila. But thousands are left behind, waiting for relief. The U.S. has pledged $20 million in immediate aid. It's sending the aircraft carrier the USS George Washington. Marines have already landed. CBN Disaster Relief is working to clear roads so that governments and humanitarian groups can bring in desperately needed supplies. CBN is also shipping water purification devices that will disinfect more than 500,000 gallons a day. And CBN has medical workers on the ground. Many of those injured in Tacloban are fighting for their lives at this makeshift hospital at the airport. For many, medical help is needed immediately.
He needs dialysis, and he's been off now for 2 days, and he's in critical condition. And so if the world's out there, send help, because these people need it.
The typhoon these people survived may be the strongest ever recorded. Newly released video shows its deadly force as it pushed water inland, destroying lives and communities. Today, sadly, more misery. Another tropical storm, although much weaker, hit this country, followed by a small earthquake. Heather Sells, CBN News.
You just wonder how much people can endure. But I want you to know CBN is there. We've got about 40 people coming out of our office in Manila helping. We have medical teams, we have relief teams, and we have sent, as Heather pointed out, a water purification unit that from Operation Blessing that can purify about 500,000 gallons a day, I believe that number is. And we're there to help because we have a major presence in the Philippines for many, many years. So if you want to help, and those people are desperate, it's CBN Disaster Relief. The number's on your screen, 1-800-759-0700. CBN Disaster Relief Fund. Here's a time to help those who really hurt. Well, here at home, it looks like more bad news for Obamacare, Democrat care. John Jessup has that story from Washington. Here's John.
Pat, signups for insurance through Obamacare's federal exchanges apparently are falling far short of their goals so far. According to a healthcare research and consulting firm, it estimates only about 50,000 people have signed up so far. The Obama administration's target for October was 500,000. The system needs more people to enroll to make Obamacare work. North Korea has executed 80 people by firing squad for misdemeanor crimes like watching television programs from South Korea or possessing a Bible. That's the report from a South Korean newspaper picked up by the London Telegraph. The story says the coordinated executions were held in 7 cities earlier this month. In one place, the local government gathered up 10,000 people, including children, and forced them to watch. Relatives and friends of the victims were also reportedly sent to prison camps. Pat?
John, that's the most monstrous evil. It's a concentration camp run by a thuggish family. It's like, as I believe Congressman King said, it's an organized crime family posing as a nation. But the damage being done to those people is just beyond calculation. It is hideous. It's time we turn the screws on North Korea and stop pussyfooting around and saying, well, we're going to have an agreement here and an agreement there. We've got to shut them down, and we can do it. I mean, it can be done. We just close them down. They're exporting nuclear weapons. They're exporting, I don't know about nuclear, but they're exporting weapons of mass destruction of one kind or the other. They have a terribly small economy that's mostly supporting the military. But it's time that we say enough's enough. These people are hideous monsters and they need to get stopped. John?
Pat, an expert on child sex trafficking in the U.S., says more states are stepping up their fight against modern slavery. Former Congresswoman Linda Smith is now president of Shared Hope International, and according to the organization's third annual report card, 48 states introduced nearly 800 anti-trafficking bills this year. 29 states passed new laws, and Tennessee, Louisiana, and Washington all received A grades for their anti-trafficking measures. Smith says states are waking up to the need to toughen up penalties.
When we started, there were very few states that even made it a felony to buy commercial sex with a child. And now 48 states have it either a felony or a very serious criminal activity.
She also says much still needs to be done. A recent survey shows only 18 out of 400 adults who bought sex with a child online went to prison. The Food and Drug Administration made headlines last week when it said it plans to gradually eliminate trans fats from the American food supply. Lori Johnson has this look at why food companies use trans fats and why medical experts warn they're so bad for you.
Packaged foods are loaded with trans fats because they're cheap, have a smooth texture, and prevent food from spoiling. Michael Moss investigated the processed food industry and says their huge profits are largely due to trans fats.
They got big by making products that are utterly irresistible to people, both in taste but also ultra convenient, that will sit on the shelf and be waiting for you when you're ready to eat them, and also incredibly low cost.
But trans fats are deadly, according to the medical community. Dr. Michael Aziz says because trans fats are artificially synthesized in a lab, our body doesn't know what to do with them.
Trans fats are really like plastic, and when we eat them, they incorporate in our cells, and the cells cannot communicate or talk to one another. In turn, hormones are disturbed. Weight gain follows, but more troubling, the risk for heart disease, cancer, stroke, infertility goes up.
Trans fats have even been linked to Alzheimer's disease and are the cornerstone of an inflammatory diet. Cardiologist Deepak Talreja tells his patients to scan a product's list of ingredients for trans fats, which are also called hydrogenated oils.
Trans fats are probably one of the most dangerous things we can consume that you see in everyday foods available to us that have no restrictions on them.
The Food and Drug Administration is giving food companies 2 months to try to prove trans fats are safe. If they can't, they'll be given a deadline to phase them out. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Pat, in the past, with talk about too much salt or too much sugar, you'd have accusations of people talking about the nanny state, but you don't seem to be hearing that with trans fats.
Well, they're killers, and I think we've known it for years. You know, I was talking to our producer. I said, I thought they'd banned those things already. We've heard about it. Many companies are taking out trans fats, but hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated oil, it sounds so painless.
Well, do you remember years ago we had the doctor on that had written the book called Excitotoxins, and how the flavors in those foods keep you coming back for more, and it's all chemicals.
Well, we put the screws to the soup companies on putting in substances on them, and you know, they began to advertise, we don't put any of these things in. So I think it's important to realize that these things can kill you. And you go to certain restaurants and you come out and you feel fatigued when you get through eating, and it's because of these excitotoxins they put in it. You know, there's no doubt about it that it's deadly, and it's deadly profitable, and that's the thing. But you know, I'm not a great fan of the FDA. I think they make some errors, but in this case, they need to get active, and I'm for activism. I'm sure Mayor Bloomberg would be thrilled. He's getting criticized because of the nanny state, but that's a good thing to do.
The American Center for Law and Justice calls it a big win for religious freedom. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled in favor of a Catholic business in Illinois. The business was suing to block the Obamacare mandate that forces companies to provide coverage for contraceptives and drugs that can cause abortions. The ACLJ represents the company. The ruling increases the chance the Supreme Court will take up the case. Organizers are challenging the new California law that gives transgender students a long list of rights. They've collected 620,000 signatures to get the initiative on the ballot next November. Governor Jerry Brown signed the bill into law in September. It made California the first state to give new rights to transgender students in elementary through high school. That includes being able to choose to play on boys or girls sports teams and to use boys or girls bathrooms and locker rooms. Opponents say the law violates the privacy of other students. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.